Welcome. We are the analysis team here at the Urban Herald, and we're really glad you could join us for a deep dive into what is probably one of the most central and maybe most conflicted issues in modern family life.
We're talking about sharenting.
Exactly.
Sharenting.
And this is a topic that sits right at this, this crazy intersection of technology, law, and just that fundamental parenting instinct.
Absolutely. In a world where every baby giggle, every first step, every single school event is a potential post.
A post that can reach hundreds, maybe thousands of people in an instant.
The whole conversation around family, privacy, technology, it's just completely shifted.
And we are just here as observers of this phenomenon. Our job is to really analyze the complex legal and psychological framework that's shaping all of this.
Right. So today our focus is sharenting meaning and risks, a parent's guide to digital privacy. Because for a lot of people, sharing isn't just an automatic reflex. It's a way to affirm their identity as a parent. It is, but we have to move beyond that adorable, instantly gratifying picture and really look squarely at the profound long-term effects of this practice on the children themselves.
So what's our mission here today?
Well, our mission as part of the Urban Herald team is to give you a comprehensive, actionable analysis. We're going to explore exactly why sharenting is such a double-edged sword.
Offering connection on one hand.
And connection and community, yeah. While at the same time harboring these really serious, lasting risks, we need to understand how the ethical guidelines and the legal frameworks that exist are intersecting with this practice all over the world.
And most importantly,
we're going to outline practical steps parents can actually take. The goal here is simple: to help families celebrate their lives without unknowingly, compromising their children's futures. This is a full guide to navigating that digital paradox.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the word itself, parenting, this is one of those linguistic mashups, right? Portmanteau.
Sharing plus parenting.
And it started out as what? Kind of a humorous term for the parent who is maybe a little too proud, flooding the timeline with pictures.
Yeah, but it's exploded. It's a massive cultural phenomenon now. For so many, it's just this ingrained, instinctive digital reflex.
Share first, process later.
Exactly. And that's often driven by the design of the platforms themselves. That speed, that reflexive desire to capture and broadcast, that's really key.
You're saying parents are fundamentally changing their role as chroniclers.
I think so. Historically, they were narrators, right? They made physical scrapbooks or quiet home movies.
Things you kept in a box in the attic.
Right. And you only brought them out for trusted audiences. Now they're digital biographers. They're instantaneous reporters and curators of a virtual gallery that's, it's continuously updated and critically often publicly visible.
And that element of permanence is what makes this so different. That virtual gallery, whether you mean for it to or not, it might last forever.
It gets archived across multiple platforms, search engines.
It's a whole continuum that starts, a lot of the time, before the kid is even born. The ultrasound scan, the birth announcement.
It's the first steps, the soccer games. The parent is crafting this entire online scrapbook, often before the child is old enough to even grasp the concept of a digital identity.
And this urgency, it often pushes the practice pretty quickly over the line into what digital safety experts call oversharing.
Oversharing, yeah. The hidden problematic sequel to just simple documentation. It's one thing to celebrate a happy moment.
Of course.
It's another thing entirely to publicly broadcast deeply personal, embarrassing, or, identifying details about a child's life. Where do we even draw that line between documenting the precious and violating the private?
Which brings us to the core question. Why? Why is this so incredibly prevalent? Given the risks we're about to discuss, what are the fundamental human drivers behind this digital reflex?
Well, the drivers are powerful and they're deeply rooted. We're talking about fundamental needs that these social media platforms are, frankly, explicitly designed to fulfill.
Like keeping family and friends in the loop.
Exactly. That's a huge one, especially as families become more geographically scattered. It's a mechanism for maintaining those bonds.
And then there's the community and validation side of it, which is maybe a bit harder to admit, but it's undeniably true.
Oh, absolutely. Parents are seeking connection with other parents. Sharing struggles and triumphs online becomes a way of finding a community, a shared experience, and frankly, necessary emotional support.
And the validation part, the likes.
And yes, seeking validation. That little burst of dopamine from the like button or the comment that says, "You're doing a great job." That is a highly potent motivator for frequent posting.
Not to mention just the desire to immortalize moments. That perfect Halloween costume.
Right. The camera and by extension the internet are seen as the ultimate memory keepers.
And the data, the actual numbers supporting how common this is, it's pretty striking. It paints a very clear picture of the scale we're dealing with.
It's crucial for you to grasp the scale. The research indicates that a child's digital footprint begins incredibly early, often before they've even left the hospital.
I've seen this stat, and it's wild.
An astonishing 92% of American children already have some form of online presence by the age of 2.
By age 2, that statistic should stop any parent in their tracks. I mean, before a child is reliably verbal, before they develop basic memory, the internet already holds actionable, identifiable information about them.
And this isn't passive data collection, this is parent-driven content creation.
Exactly.
And it just keeps accumulating. Studies show that by the time children reach their teenage years, say age 13 or 14, they typically have upwards of 1,000 photos of themselves circulating online.
1,000. Think about that volume. 1,000 digital artifacts, curated and posted entirely without their input or permission. It's a massive virtual history.
And we know this trend just intensified dramatically during the recent global crisis.
The pandemic. How did that period affect the Sharenting curve?
It supercharged the instinct. With all the traditional social connections, playdates, school functions, family visits temporarily severed, parents relied heavily on cyberspace.
To connect, to celebrate milestones.
And to prove that life was still happening, despite the isolation, this likely heightened the instinct to share, often bypassing the internal checks and balances you need for long-term privacy.
This brings us squarely to what we've called the great digital paradox. This is the core tension that parents have to navigate, and usually without any real guidance.
The great digital paradox is that precarious balancing act. On one side, you have that powerful natural impulse to share joy, to celebrate your child's life, and seek connection. It feels good.
Of course it does.
On the other side, you have the profound, enduring responsibility to safeguard your child's privacy, their dignity, and ultimately their autonomy over their own life story. And those two poles are constantly pulling apart.
So it sounds like the central question for modern parents isn't whether to document, but whether they can truly celebrate their child's life online without building a digital footprint that their child might one day wish had never existed.
Or worse, that actively harms them.
Right.
And what's fascinating here is the rapid, almost universal acceptance of this practice globally. It's not limited to one culture or one continent. It reflects a universal shift in how families document and share their lives.
The difficulty is just figuring out where that line is.
Where exactly that line should be drawn between the public celebration of a moment and the long-term violation of a child's right to control their own story. And that requires a level of intentionality that, frankly, social media algorithms are actively working against.
That initial rush of validation from likes, it can be intoxicating, but that gratification often comes at a steep, delayed cost. Let's start with identity and reputation risks that way beyond a child just being mildly embarrassed later on.
We have to be really clear here. The first major hidden danger is sophisticated identity theft and fraud. And it leverages what we call jigsaw data.
Jigsaw data. I think that term perfectly captures how criminals operate in this space. They don't need one big piece of highly protected information, right? They just need to piece together these seemingly innocent scraps of info that parents are just giving away for free.
Exactly. Imagine a parent posting a photo of a child's birthday party. The cake reveals their full name. The caption includes the birth date. In the background, you can subtly see a school uniform or a recognizable feature of your house.
Each piece on its own seems harmless.
Totally. Full names, birthdays, addresses, family details, school names. But criminals treat this like a treasure hunt. They use this data to construct a complete profile.
And this leads directly into something called synthetic identity fraud. A lot of our listeners might think, well, my kid's a minor, they don't have a credit history, so they're safe. How does that actually work?
It's so insidious because the child's identity is essentially a clean slate. Fraudsters take the child's legitimate personal information, like their name and maybe a social security number if they can get it, and combine it with fabricated details, a fake date of birth, a phone number, an address they piece together from that jigsaw data.
And then they use this synthetic identity.
Yeah.
To what? Open accounts.
Open ghost accounts, apply for credit cards, take out loans. And because the child is a minor, the parent isn't routinely monitoring their credit history. So the fraudster has years, sometimes a decade or more, to build up significant debt before anyone even notices.
Which is why we see this really alarming projection. We're talking about a massive societal risk here.
We are. There's a startling prediction that by 2030, a massive two-thirds of identity theft cases involving minors will be traceable directly back to parental oversharing.
Two-thirds. That number is crucial because it means the parent has become the single greatest vector for their child's ID theft, more so than some external data breach.
Way more. The trust factor inherent in family sharing makes this data uniquely vulnerable.
And the risk is a true time bomb. If he goes undetected until the child turns 18 and applies for a credit card or a student loan, what happens then?
That moment of financial awakening is just devastating. They discover their credit history is already ruined, sometimes with tens of thousands of dollars of debt based on fraud that happened when they were in kindergarten.
And the cleanup process must be a nightmare.
It's torturous. It requires years of litigation to prove the fraud and restore their financial identity. It affects everything: housing applications, car loans, and their entire future.
And that, on a more subtle level, parents are often just handing out the answers to their child's future security questions without even thinking about it.
This is a classic vulnerability. Think of the details we love to share: the name of the family pet, the child's first school, their favorite sports team, their middle name.
All standard security questions.
The exact pieces of trivia used by banks and institutions to protect accounts. By posting these details online, parents are essentially handing the keys to future fraudsters who are trying to access those accounts or verify that synthetic identity they created.
Okay, let's move to the second big risk: the permanent digital footprint and the impact on future opportunities. In the past, those embarrassing photos stayed in a shoebox in the attic.
Now they're multiplied by 1,000, publicly searchable, and backed by increasingly sophisticated technology. Unlike those tattered photo albums, digital content persists indefinitely. And once it's captured by search engines or platform archives, it is virtually impossible to fully erase.
So this curated digital footprint, built from the moment of birth, can have these profound consequences down the line when the child tries to enter adult life.
Exactly. We're talking about university admission officers, future employers conducting extensive digital background checks, even potential landlords. The digital footprint created by the parent can act as an indelible stain.
And how is it used? Is it just someone judging the content, or is technology actively facilitating this?
It's both. The permanence means that today's adorable toddler tantrum video, the one that got 100 likes because it was relatable, could be found and weaponized years later. The child is pigeonholed or judged based on an online persona they had absolutely no part in creating.
But the technology layer is the really scary part here. We're talking about sophisticated facial recognition.
Indeed. As facial recognition technology continues to advance, as it gets cheaper and more ubiquitous, photos shared years ago can be linked back to an adult individual with high accuracy.
Even if they change their name or move.
Even then. This means that assessments by universities or employers can be unfairly influenced by content shared without the individual's consent, simply because the technology connects the dots between a highly embarrassing childhood photo and their current professional identity. This record is virtually inescapable, and the judgment is based on metadata, not on informed choice.
So moving beyond financial ruin and reputational damage, the content shared via Sharenting can also be weaponized in the social sphere, and it can be exploited by malicious actors. This brings us to immediate safety and lasting psychological threats.
This is where the risks move from the abstract world of identity fraud to the very real and immediate dangers of harassment, exploitation, and even physical threat.
Risk number 3, cyberbullying and harassment. It often starts with just a moment of parental poor judgment that quickly spirals.
It does. A photo or a detailed story, maybe about a potty training accident or a spectacular meltdown, even if you share it innocently, it can snowball rapidly.
It can turn into a meme.
A meme used to mock the child. It can lead to doxing, where private or identifying information is published online, or it can result in real-world harassment when classmates use that information to target them. Cyberbullying thrives on having a rich digital trail to mine for material.
And what we call screenshot culture means that the parent completely loses control, even if they quickly delete the original post.
That's the brutal reality. Content you share with a small circle of family can be screenshot, hijacked from a public profile, and then show up on anonymous message boards. or it can be repurposed for mockery by classmates.
And even if you delete it, it's not gone.
Not at all. Even content that parents meticulously delete can continue circulating for years via screenshots and archived links. And this creates lasting, profound emotional harm when intimate family photos are used to humiliate a child at school.
The fourth risk is, well, it's probably the most serious and terrifying one for any parent. Predator risk. And it's now greatly exacerbated by things like embedded metadata and generative AI.
This is a critical safety point that requires vigilance. Posting publicly, especially when location data or school names are visible in the background, significantly increases the risk to the child. The digital environment is not a closed neighborhood. It's a global network where malicious intent absolutely exists.
And the data on where illicit material actually comes from is shocking.
It is deeply disturbing. Studies confirm that over 50% of images found on illicit forums originally came directly from parents' social media posts.
Over half.
Over half. That simple act of sharing becomes, in far too many cases, a direct feeder for online criminal activity. That statistic alone should drive home the need for absolute privacy controls and constant vigilance.
And now, with the advancements we're seeing in artificial intelligence, the very nature of this exploitation is changing.
Generative AI tools are making the exploitation of this innocent source material easier, cheaper, and more sophisticated than ever before. AI can create highly realistic, deepfake content from a simple, innocent childhood photo,
Stripping away the context.
and damaging the child's identity in ways that were just impossible even 5 years ago. This technological transformation is why we're seeing global regulatory bodies moving so quickly.
And it's not just the images themselves, it's the patterns and routines that are revealed, often unintentionally, that concern safety experts.
Predators don't need highly sensitive data. They need consistency. They use public profiles to meticulously study children's routines, their favorite locations, their daily schedules.
So when a parent posts a photo of the first day at Maple Elementary or a daily update about Saturday morning soccer at Riverside Park,
They are providing specific, actionable intelligence about when and where that child can be found. Even indirect details, like a school logo on a uniform or the backdrop of a local park, create patterns that can be easily exploited by those with malicious intent.
this raises an important question about control. How much responsibility falls on the platform to safeguard against these deeply sophisticated and disturbing threats, and how much is ultimately left to the parent?
It's a dual responsibility for sure, but ultimately the parent is the gatekeeper of that initial data flow. Since the platforms can't really prevent the sharing of the photo itself, they can only moderate what's posted after the fact. The primary onus is on the adult to recognize that the digital ecosystem is not benign. It requires a level of vigilance far beyond what was required for traditional scrapbooking, especially when the risks include everything from financial ruin to direct physical and psychological harm amplified by technology like AI.
Let's pivot now to what is probably the most philosophically thorny issue in this whole debate. The child's fundamental right to self-determination in the digital world. The ethical and legal frameworks they're scrambling to catch up with this.
This is the core dilemma of digital consent. The fundamental issue is that young children simply cannot meaningfully consent to having their lives chronicled and broadcast for a mass audience.
They just can't.
They lack the maturity, the experience, and the foresight to understand the long-term permanent ramifications of that digital record.
It really shifts the parent's perspective, doesn't it? Instead of asking, why can't I share this happy moment? The crucial question has to be, is this a decision my child will regret when they are fully capable of understanding its context?
Exactly. And we are seeing the direct fallout of this lack of consent manifest in what's being called the revenge factor.
The revenge factor.
This is where children and teens, upon reaching an age of awareness and digital literacy, push back aggressively against the digital legacy their parents created for them. It leads to profound feelings of resentment, embarrassment, and even betrayal.
I've read accounts of this.
Many young adults report feeling their autonomy was utterly violated when they discovered the extensive documentation of their private childhood, which they now know is accessible to friends, partners, and future colleagues.
And this is where international legal frameworks are starting to draw some clear, enforceable lines to protect a child's autonomy. They're recognizing how severe this violation is.
They are acting decisively. Major regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, in Europe,
Right.
and the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPP, in the U.S., explicitly recognize a child's right to privacy in the digital world. These laws have a massive global influence on how platforms operate.
Can you elaborate on the power of GDPR, specifically for content posted by a parent?
The GDPR is really significant because it recognizes the right to be forgotten for minors. So, even if a parent originally posted the content, when the child reaches the age of digital consent, which is typically set at 16 in many European countries, they can legally demand the deletion of those digital records.
So the child's right to privacy trumps the parent's right to document.
In that legal framework, yes. Below that age, platforms often require explicit parental consent for data processing, recognizing the minor's vulnerability.
And how does that differ from the U.S. approach with COPA?
Well, COPA operates from a different premise. It primarily governs platform behavior. It demands that online services directed at children under 13 must get parental consent before collecting personal data. It doesn't directly address the legality of a parent posting a photo of their child to their own personal social media account.
So there's a legal tension there.
A huge one. Europe prioritizes the child's long-term right to deletion, their autonomy, while the U.S. focuses heavily on protecting data collection by platforms during early childhood.
And we're seeing this regulatory movement accelerating all over the world, reflecting this sense of urgency about child digital rights.
The movement is accelerating rapidly, and it's moving beyond just data collection and into access. Australia, for example, set a major precedent in late 2024 by establishing a minimum age requirement of 16 for social media access on various platforms.
And we're seeing similar movements elsewhere.
Oh, yeah, in Ireland, New Zealand, Singapore, Spain. They're all focused on stricter age verification and setting strict access limits. It reflects a global consensus that early unrestricted access is harmful.
And legislative initiatives are moving through major governing bodies, making this official.
Yes, the European Parliament has been very proactive. Initiatives pushed forward in November 2025 call for a minimum age of 16 for social media access and, notably, explicit bans on addictive features specifically designed to keep kids engaged.
They're targeting the psychological vulnerability.
Exactly. And this effort reflects a deep societal concern. Surveys show 90% of Europeans consider child online protection an urgent priority.
And this is being backed up by public awareness campaigns.
Ireland's Data Protection Commission, also in November 2025, launched the Pause Before You Post campaign, which directly targets parents. The message is simple. Consider the profound long-term implications of sharing your children's information online before you hit upload.
But the legal action isn't just coming from institutions anymore, it's coming from the children themselves. The legal revenge factor is no longer theoretical, it's actually happening in courtrooms.
That's a defining aspect of this generation. We have seen instances of teenagers winning legal injunctions against their own parents' sharenting albums. Courts in various countries are now formally recognizing the child's right to control their image and digital presence, and it's setting powerful precedents.
And this precedent is spilling over into other areas of family life too.
Absolutely. Questionable social media albums, especially those documenting embarrassing moments or sensitive medical information, have become admissible evidence in family disputes, including custody battles.
So courts are viewing these posts as potential proof of poor parental judgment.
Or a profound disregard for a child's privacy rights, yes. The emotional cost of this broken trust is immense, especially as young adults discover the full extent of their digital history. It leads to strained or entirely severed relationships. This conflict is now a regular feature in courtrooms and family therapy sessions globally. This generation of digital natives is fiercely protective of the digital autonomy they never got to choose.
We have to address the most controversial part of this whole phenomena, the point where sharing crosses the line into profit, entering the monetization gray zone. This is where the stakes get dramatically higher, transforming this ethical dilemma into a labor rights issue.
When sharenting becomes monetized through dedicated family vlogs, sponsored content, brand endorsements, or unboxing videos, the practice immediately takes on a much more concerning profile.
It's a different thing entirely.
It transforms the child from a subject of familial memory into an actual commodity, a source of income, and, in many ways, a child laborer.
And legal systems are clearly struggling to adapt to this new, distributed form of child labor and commercial exploitation. But we are starting to see some clear legislative action.
We are seeing critical precedents being set. French law, for example, has moved to restrict the hours and the type of work children can do online, treating kidfluencing much like traditional child acting.
So it's a formal recognition that this is, in fact, labor.
That's right, that it requires protection and regulation, not just being dismissed as a casual family hobby.
Spain has also laid down some very specific laws about posting children's images, particularly when it's monetized.
Spanish law is quite strict. It states that no image of a child under 14 may be posted without explicit parental consent. But the critical point is that children aged 14 and over have significantly enhanced rights.
They can object.
They can object to images and demand their removal, asserting control over their digital likeness against their parents' wishes, especially if monetization is involved.
And the burden is increasingly being placed on the platforms that facilitate this economy.
That's right. Platforms like YouTube and Instagram are now required to enforce stricter protections around minors' images and content, though, enforcement is notoriously difficult. Regulators globally are demanding greater transparency and accountability from the companies that profit massively from this child-centric content.
This brings us back to the core ethical debate. Is it ethical for parents to profit directly from their child's image and life experiences?
This is fiercely debated. If a child's performance or image generates revenue for the family, that revenue should, ethically and legally, be protected for the child. This raises the issue of whether these earnings should be protected for the child's future, similar to Coogan laws.
The laws that protect child performers.
Exactly, in traditional entertainment industries.
For listeners who haven't heard of Coogan laws, what do they do and how would they apply here?
So Coogan laws originated in the U.S. after the exploitation of the early child star Jackie Coogan. Essentially, they mandate that a significant portion, often 15% of a child performer's earnings, must be automatically placed into a protected trust fund.
A Coogan account.
Right, which the child cannot access until they turn 18. Applying this digitally means that if a family vlog earns $100,000 in ad revenue featuring a child, a mandatory percentage of that should be locked away for the child. It recognizes that the child is the product and the worker.
Beyond the financial ethics, there's the profound, ongoing psychological impact on children who literally grow up as content creators, constantly performing for a camera.
This constant performance fundamentally interferes with normal childhood development. The pressure to maintain an online persona, to always be on and camera ready, to perform authenticity, or even to stage specific life events for the cameras can profoundly warp a child's relationship with attention and external validation.
They're essentially learning that their personal value is tied directly to their marketability and their ability to generate clicks.
Precisely. And this can lead to significant mental health issues. Studies suggest that 25% of minors already display what's categorized as problematic smartphone use. For a child whose entire identity, and often their family's livelihood, is tied to their online performance, that pressure is amplified dramatically.
It must interfere with just being a kid.
It interferes with authentic self-discovery. It forces them into a profitable role designed to maximize clicks and views, rather than focusing on genuine social and emotional development.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this monetization trend really highlights the critical need for robust labor protections in the digital sphere that recognize these children as workers, not just as subjects of a family project.
Absolutely. When the family dinner table is also a set for sponsored content, the lines between personal life, work, and exploitation become dangerously blurred. And this demands rapid legislative clarity and intense ethical scrutiny to ensure that we protect the rights and futures of these digital workers before an entire generation of former kidfluencers enters adulthood with their trust funds depleted and their identities compromised.
It is easy to feel overwhelmed by the depth of these risks. But, digital parenting demands caution, not abandonment. Safe sharenting isn't about stopping all sharing. It's about thoughtful sharing. And that requires an intentional action plan and some clear guidelines.
This is the practical core of our guide. We need to internalize what we call the stop and think rule as the foundational practice.
And what does that core reflection entail before a parent actually presses post?
The parent should pause and ask two crucial questions. First, does this post prioritize my momentary joy over my child's lasting privacy? And second, would my child thank me or resent me if this appears when they're 18?
That forces you to consider the long-term context, college applications, job interviews, future relationships.
Right. If you can't predict every scenario, you can at least anticipate the most harmful ones and filter those out.
And that reflection leads directly to the golden rule of sharenting, which is really all about empathy.
The golden rule is simple. Only post what you'd be entirely comfortable having shared about your own life at that exact same age. Would you want your high school interviewers seeing a photo of you, age 3, having a spectacular public meltdown? That perspective shift often immediately filters out content that feels cute in the moment, but is deeply invasive from a future adult's viewpoint.
Okay. Practice number 2 focuses on setting and regularly reviewing privacy boundaries. This sounds basic, but so many parents overlook the necessary details.
It is absolutely non-negotiable and requires ongoing maintenance. You have to routinely review your privacy settings on all platforms, not just once, but after every major platform update.
The baseline should be what? Locked profiles?
Locked profiles and strictly limiting posts to close friends and family, people whom you genuinely trust. Never, under any circumstances, should a child's photo be visible to strangers.
And the necessary digital hygiene goes beyond those settings, right? It's often in the metadata attached to the photo itself.
It absolutely does. Crucially, always disable location services and geotags before posting any photos, especially those taken at home or at school. Secondly, routinely audit your list of followers. Many parents have hundreds or even thousands of friends they haven't spoken to in years.
We use the analogy, if you wouldn't hand them a physical photo in person.
You should not be sharing the photo digitally.
Practice number 3 introduces a measure of anonymity and pseudonym usage for sharing cherished moments safely.
If you must share the moment, find creative ways to do it without revealing the child's identifiable information. You can blur faces, use emojis over identifiers, use nicknames or initials instead of full names.
Or share creative glimpses like the back of a head or hand.
Exactly. This captures the memory and the connection without providing that actionable jigsaw data that identity thieves and predators are looking for.
And a very simple safety measure is just adjusting the timing of your post.
Never post in real time. Avoid posting photos or videos while you are still at a sensitive location. A school, a playground, a vacation spot. Wait until you've left the location and are home. This simple delay significantly reduces the risk of malicious actors using your posts to track your child's current whereabouts.
Okay, practice number 4 is essential, especially as children get older and begin to understand their own identity. The waiting rule and explicit consent.
For any child old enough to express an opinion, explicit consent is mandatory before posting their image or story. You must discuss the potential post and respect their boundaries, even if they are only in elementary school.
And respecting that decision models good digital citizenship.
It teaches them invaluable lessons about consent and bodily autonomy very early on.
And there are certain types of images that safety experts agree should be subject to an absolute ban, regardless of age or consent.
An absolute ban must be enforced on images of nudity, embarrassment, or vulnerability. This includes bath time photos, emotional meltdowns, or potty training milestones. These are intimate moments that deserve complete privacy and can be profoundly humiliating if they resurface years later.
The waiting rule reinforces the finality of digital sharing.
Right. If you are in doubt about whether content might embarrass or harm your child, or if they're not old enough to truly consent, just don't post it. You can always share the photos later in private once the child is old enough to decide for themselves. But the harm caused by premature public sharing cannot be undone.
Practice number 5 suggests a shift in narrative focus. Make the post about the parent's story, not the child's personal details.
This is a highly effective way to maintain community connection without compromising privacy. Frame posts around your own experience, your struggles, your joys, your reflections on the parenting journey, rather than making the child the primary star attraction in every single update.
So you can share the experience without sharing the identifying image. That preserves the connection without violating the child's privacy.
Precisely. For example, you can write beautifully about the profound experience of attending your child's first school play, detailing the joy and anxiety you felt watching them, without posting photos of them in costume that could be tracked or used for mockery. This approach still allows for connection and support while protecting the child's identity.
Our final best practice, number 6, is the need for ongoing, periodic maintenance, auditing your digital footprint.
This requires ongoing maintenance, like changing the batteries in a smoke detector. Families need to periodically review and delete photos or information that no longer reflect the current family consensus on privacy. As children grow, content that was deemed appropriate when they were toddlers might feel completely wrong and invasive when they enter middle school.
And this audit provides a crucial opportunity for education and open dialogue.
Use the audit as a tool to model thoughtful digital citizenship. Involve older children in the process of reviewing past posts and deciding what should be archived or removed. This process shows them that their feelings matter, it empowers them with control, and it prepares them to manage their own digital lives responsibly when they inevitably start creating their own accounts.
It all comes down to open, regular conversations.
That's the key to building good online habits for life.
This completes our action plan for intentional, thoughtful sharing, shifting the power dynamic back toward privacy and consent. Sharenting is, truly, the defining digital age dilemma. It's a consequence of technology moving faster than our ethical and legal frameworks can accommodate. As we've seen, the instinct to share is deeply human, but the responsibility to protect is paramount. Caution, consultation, and compassion. That's the new trinity for the 21st century parent navigating this complex landscape.
We've analyzed the severe, lasting risks, from identity fraud, traceable back to childhood posts, to the psychological damage of cyberbullying and the terrifying emergence of AI deepfakes. We have to recognize that as technology morphs and platforms multiply, mindful sharing requires constant, intentional vigilance.
The ultimate principle remains. Every child deserves agency, a voice, an identity, and a choice in their own digital story. The goal is to ensure that our celebration of family life today doesn't become the source of our children's humiliation or exploitation tomorrow.
And this leaves us with a final, provocative thought to mull over, something that will shape the future of social media itself. The children of the selfie generation, the cohort that has had their lives fully chronicled online since birth, will one day reach adulthood with powerful new digital tools and, perhaps, new grievances. They will inevitably revisit the digital footprints left by their parents.
The question is, what tools will they invent or utilize to reclaim their narratives, to gain control over identities built without their consent? And how will that generational pushback, the inevitable revenge factor, ultimately reshape how social media operates?
Will the next generation successfully demand a right to a blank digital slate? And what will that mean for the concept of a permanent online history?
That is the pivotal conversation that is just beginning to unfold.
It really is.
Thank you for joining us for this in-depth analysis on sharenting. We hope this comprehensive guide aids you in navigating these challenging currents of contemporary life.
We invite you to continue exploring this and other crucial topics with the team here at the Urban Herald.
Until next time.